never believed in the stories they told about the old tree behind our school. It was massive, with twisted branches that spread like claws against the sky. The kids said it was cursed, that strange things happened to anyone who got too close. But I always thought it was just one of those silly school legends meant to scare new students. That was until the day we dared each other to stay there after dark. It was late September when it happened. The air was cool, and the days were getting shorter. My friends, Jake, Mia, and I, were hanging out after school when the conversation turned to the tree. Jake was always the brave one, the loudmouth. "You guys believe those stupid stories?" He laughed. "It's just an old tree. Let's prove it." I hesitated, but Mia spoke up. "What if it's true? People say they hear whispers from it at night." Jake rolled his eyes. "Whispers? Seriously? You guys are chicken." He grinned. "Tell you what, let's go there tonight, just for an hour. We'll see who's scared." I didn't want to seem afraid, so I agreed. We planned to meet at the back gate of the school around 9 p.m. By then, the place would be deserted. I spent the rest of the day feeling uneasy, but I kept telling myself it was just a tree, just an old, creepy tree. When I got there that night, the school grounds were silent. The wind rustled the leaves, and the tree loomed in the dim light. Jake was already there, leaning against the fence, smirking. Mia showed up a few minutes later, looking nervous. "This is a bad idea," she whispered. "Too late to back out now," Jake said. He climbed over the fence and started walking toward the tree. We followed, the grass crunching under our feet. As we got closer, the air seemed colder. The tree looked bigger, darker. Its branches swayed, even though the wind had died down. We stood there in silence for a while, and then Jake started laughing. "See? Nothing. Just—" A branch cracked behind us. We all turned, but there was nothing there. "Probably an animal," Jake said, but his voice wasn't so confident anymore. Then we heard it, a soft, whispering sound. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the more I listened, the more it sounded like words. Faint, distant words we couldn't quite understand. "Let's go," Mia said, her voice shaking. But Jake was already moving toward the tree. "It's just the wind," he called back. He reached out and touched the trunk, and that's when everything changed. The whispers grew louder, clearer. They weren't words. They were voices. Angry, desperate voices. The air around the tree seemed to ripple, and suddenly Jake stumbled back, his face pale. "We need to leave," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But it was too late. The ground beneath the tree began to shift, and the roots twisted like snakes. A low, creaking sound filled the air, not from the wind, but from the tree itself. Then one of the branches moved. It didn't sway. It reached. "Run!" Mia screamed. We turned and sprinted toward the fence, but when I looked back, Jake wasn't behind us. We stopped at the fence, gasping for breath. The air was thick, like it was pressing down on us, and the whispers hadn't stopped. They'd gotten louder. I turned back, scanning the darkness. "Jake!" I called, but there was no answer. "Where is he?" Mia's voice was trembling. She clutched my arm so tight it hurt. "I don't know," I whispered, my heart pounding. "He was right behind us." We stood there, listening, and then we heard it. Footsteps. Slow, dragging footsteps coming from the tree. My throat went dry. "Jake?" I called again. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. A shadow moved between the branches, and the footsteps stopped. There was silence, heavy and unnatural. And then, Jake's voice, but it didn't sound right. It was too flat, too calm. "Why did you run?" he asked. Mia squeezed my arm harder. "That's not him," she whispered. My stomach turned. She was right. The way he spoke, it didn't sound like Jake at all. I tried to see him through the darkness, but the shape that stepped forward wasn't quite right. It looked like him, but his face was wrong. Pale, stiff. His eyes didn't seem to focus, and his arms, they hung at his sides like they didn't belong to him. "Come back," he said, his voice soft and strange. "It's safe here." Mia started crying. "We need to go," she whispered, tugging my arm. But I couldn't move. Then Jake, or whatever he was, tilted his head. "Don't you want to see it?" he asked. "It wants to meet you." "The tree," I whispered. Jake smiled, but it wasn't his smile. It was too wide, too forced. "It's so old," he said. "So hungry." And then the whispers changed. They weren't distant anymore. They were right next to us, circling us. I felt cold breath on the back of my neck. Mia screamed, and suddenly something grabbed my wrist, something cold and rough like bark. We ran. I didn't even know which direction. I just ran until my legs burned and my chest ached. We didn't stop until we reached the street, where the school lights were distant but comforting. Only then did I dare to look back. The tree stood there, silent and still. The whispers had stopped. There was no sign of Jake. But as we stood there, trying to catch our breath, I saw something move, a shape in the branches. And then I realized the tree had too many arms. We stood there, frozen, staring at the tree. My mind kept telling me it wasn't real, that we were just scared, imagining things. But I knew what I saw. Those weren't branches. They were arms, twisting, reaching, and one of them was waving. "Did you see that?" I whispered, my voice barely working. Mia didn't answer. She just stood there, shaking, her eyes wide with fear. I grabbed her hand. "We have to call someone, the police." "No," she cut me off. "They won't believe us. And what if it's gone by the time they get here? What if they think we're crazy?" I didn't know what to do. My phone was in my pocket, but my hands were shaking too much to pull it out. That's when I heard it. A soft, distant laugh coming from the tree, and it sounded like Jake. "Help me," the voice called, but it was wrong, stretched and broken, like a recording played too slow. "Please, come back." Mia shook her head violently. "That's not him. We can't go back. We have to go home." But I couldn't leave, not without knowing. "What if it is him?" I asked, my throat tight. "What if he's still alive?" Mia stared at me, her face pale. "And what if it's not?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I jumped so hard I almost dropped it. When I pulled it out, my heart nearly stopped. It was a message from Jake's number, just 2 words. "Look up." My blood ran cold. I didn't want to. I really didn't. But I did. And what I saw made my knees go weak. In the branches of the tree, high up where the moonlight barely touched, there was a face. Jake's face. But it wasn't him. The eyes were too wide, too empty. The mouth stretched into a grin that didn't belong on any human face. And the worst part? It wasn't alone. There were others. Dozens of faces. Pale, twisted, watching. "Mia," I whispered, my voice shaking. We need to go. Now." But when I turned to grab her, she was gone. I spun around, panic rising in my chest. "Mia!" I called, my voice breaking. The street was empty. The school was silent. She was just gone. And then my phone buzzed again. Another message. This time it wasn't from Jake's number. It was from Mia's. "Look behind you." I didn't want to. Every instinct told me to run. But slowly, so slowly, I turned around. And standing there, right at the edge of the tree's shadow, was Mia. Or something that looked like her. But her eyes were wrong. My legs felt like they'd turned to stone. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Mia stood there, just a few feet away, but everything in me screamed that it wasn't her. She didn't blink. She didn't speak. She just stared. "Mia?" I whispered, my voice shaking. She tilted her head, slowly, too slowly, like she was trying to understand the sound of my voice. And then she smiled. But it wasn't her smile. It was too wide, too stretched, and it didn't reach her eyes. "Why did you leave me?" she asked softly. My stomach turned. Her voice, it was almost right. Almost. But there was something off. The words were too flat, too empty, like she was repeating something she didn't understand. I didn't leave you," I whispered. You disappeared." The smile stayed frozen on her face. "Come back to the tree," she said. "Jake's waiting." I took a step back. No. We need to go. We need to call someone." "Don't you want to see him?" she interrupted. But her voice changed, just for a second. It dropped lower, rougher, like something else was speaking through her. "He's part of it now, and you will be too." That's when I saw it, her shadow. It stretched out behind her in the moonlight, but it didn't match her shape. It was taller, thinner. Its arms were too long, its head bent at an unnatural angle. And as I watched, it moved, even though she didn't. My heart slammed against my chest. "You're not Mia," I whispered. The thing wearing Mia's face took a step forward. "Come closer," it said, in a voice that wasn't hers anymore. It was deeper now, cracked and broken. "It's so lonely here." I turned and ran. I didn't care where. I just ran. My feet pounded against the pavement, my breath came in ragged gasps, but the whispers followed me. They rose around me, voices I didn't recognize, some crying, some laughing, some begging me to stop. And then I heard my name, soft and desperate. "Please, help me." It was Jake's voice, and it was coming from the tree. I stopped, my whole body shaking. I didn't know what to do. Every instinct told me to keep running, but what if it was really him? What if he was still alive? And then my phone buzzed again. A video message. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone, but I forced myself to press play. The screen went black for a moment, and then the image appeared. It was Jake. But he wasn't on the ground. He was inside the tree. His face was pressed against the bark, his eyes wide with terror. "Help me," he whispered. "Please. It's taking me." The image flickered, and then something moved behind him. Arms. So many arms, reaching out, pulling him deeper. His screams filled the speaker, and then the screen went dark. I stared at my phone, my mind racing. I had to do something. I couldn't just leave him. But when I looked up, the tree was closer. I hadn't moved, but it was closer. My chest tightened as I stared at the tree. It shouldn't have been that close. I knew I hadn't moved. But there it was, towering over me. The air around it felt heavier, colder. The whispers were louder now, like they were right in my ears. I took a step back, but the ground felt wrong. Soft and uneven, like the grass itself was shifting beneath my feet. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Jake's number. "It sees you." My throat went dry. I looked up slowly, and the branches were moving. Not swaying, reaching, stretching toward me like long, twisted fingers. And then Mia's voice came from behind me. "Why are you running?" I spun around, but it wasn't her. It looked like her. The same face, the same clothes. But her eyes were black, not just the pupils, the whole eye, empty and hollow. "Stay with us," she whispered, taking a step forward. "It's better if you don't fight." "Stay back," I shouted, but my voice cracked with fear. She didn't stop. She kept walking, her head tilting unnaturally to one side, and then she started laughing, soft at first, then louder, until it was echoing around me. But it wasn't just her laugh. There were others, dozens of voices, all laughing together, from the tree, from the shadows, from everywhere. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voice message. My fingers shook as I pressed play. "Help me." Jake's voice was faint, broken by static. And then, in the background, I heard something else, a scraping sound like something heavy being dragged across the ground. I turned back toward the tree, and my blood ran cold. There was something coming out of the roots, a shape, pale and twisted, crawling toward me. Its face was stretched into a terrible grin, and it was wearing Jake's clothes, but I knew it wasn't him. "Come back," it whispered. "Don't leave me." I stumbled backward, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The thing kept crawling, its limbs moving wrong, its joints bending the wrong way, and behind it, the tree. The tree opened. The bark split apart like a mouth, and I saw them. Faces, Jake's, Mia's, and others I didn't recognize. Their eyes were wide, their mouths moving silently as they were pulled deeper into the darkness. "No," I whispered, my vision blurring with tears. This can't be happening." The thing that looked like Jake reached for my ankle. "Stay with us," it whispered. I kicked it, hard, and ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. But the whispers followed me, growing louder, more desperate. And then my phone rang. I stopped, my hands shaking as I pulled it out of my pocket. Jake's name flashed on the screen. My thumb hovered over the answer button. I knew I shouldn't. I knew it wasn't him. But I answered anyway. "Hello?" My voice broke. There was silence for a moment. And then Jake's voice, soft and calm. "You can't run forever." The call cut off, and when I looked up, the tree was right in front of me. My breath stopped. The tree was right there, so close I could see the texture of its bark, rough and cracked like dried skin. The air around it felt wrong, heavy and cold, and the whispers. They weren't whispers anymore. They were breathing, slow and ragged, like something huge was just behind the bark, waiting. I stepped back, and the ground shifted under my feet. I looked down and nearly screamed. The grass wasn't grass anymore, it was roots. Thin, pale roots moving like fingers, curling around my shoes. I yanked my foot free and stumbled back, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. "Mia! Jake!" I shouted, hoping, praying that maybe they were still out there. But the only answer was laughter, high-pitched and broken, coming from all around me. And then the voices started calling my name. "Come closer. It's so much easier if you don't fight. Stay with us." The voices overlapped, rising and falling like a terrible chorus. And then one of them said something that froze me in place. "We see your house." My throat closed up. "No," I whispered. My phone buzzed in my hand. A picture this time. I didn't want to look, but my thumb moved on its own. The screen lit up, and my legs nearly gave out. It was my house, taken from the front yard, and in the window, my bedroom window, there was a face. My face. The phone slipped from my hand, hitting the ground with a dull thud. My mind raced, my vision blurred. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew one thing. I had to get away from that tree. But when I turned to run, the tree had moved again. It was closer now, impossibly close. And the bark was splitting, cracking open like a jagged wound, and something was coming out. A hand, pale and thin, with fingers too long and joints that bent the wrong way. Then another, and then a face. Jake's face, but it wasn't right. His skin was stretched too tight. His eyes were black and empty. His mouth opened, and Mia's voice came out. "Why are you running?" I stumbled back, my feet barely working. The thing crawled forward, dragging itself out of the tree with jerky, unnatural movements. Behind it, more shapes were pushing against the bark, faces pressing out like the tree itself was full of them. I ran. I didn't think. I just ran. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I didn't stop. I didn't stop until I was out of the school grounds and halfway home. Only then did I dare to look back. The tree stood in the distance, still and silent, but I knew it was watching me. I could feel it. When I finally reached my house, I burst through the front door and locked it behind me, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. I ran upstairs, straight to my room, and froze. The window was open, the curtains fluttered in the breeze, and on the windowsill, there were scratches, long, deep scratches, like something with claws had been trying to get in. And then my phone buzzed again. A video message. My hands trembled as I pressed play. The screen showed my room, from outside the window. The camera panned slowly, and then focused on my closet door. It was open just a crack, and from the darkness inside, something moved. The screen went black, and then a message popped up. You brought it home. I stood there, my eyes locked on the phone screen, my whole body shaking. I didn't want to turn around. I couldn't. My closet was right behind me. I could feel it. The air had changed. It was colder now, heavier, like something was breathing in the room with me. The floor creaked softly. My heart nearly stopped. I forced myself to move, inching toward the bedroom door. My eyes stayed fixed ahead, but I could hear it. The faint sound of something shifting behind me. Slow and deliberate, like it wanted me to know it was there. My phone buzzed again, another message. I didn't want to look, but I did. Don't run. The closet door creaked, just a little. I couldn't take it anymore. I bolted. I ran out of my room, slamming the door behind me and racing down the stairs. My breath came in ragged gasps, my vision blurred with panic. But the house wasn't right. The hallway felt longer, too long, stretching ahead of me like it would never end. The lights flickered, and the walls seemed to close in. My footsteps echoed weirdly, like I wasn't the only one running. And then I heard it. Footsteps behind me. Slow at first, then faster. They pounded against the floor, getting closer and closer. I hit the front door, fumbling with the lock, my fingers slipping. Come on, I whispered, but the footsteps were right there. I could feel the air shift behind me. And then the door flew open. I stumbled outside, slamming it shut and backing away. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. The house loomed behind me, dark and silent. The footsteps had stopped, but something felt wrong. My phone buzzed. I looked down, tears streaming down my face. Another message. You shouldn't have left. And then the porch light flickered on. The front door opened, slowly, and standing there was me. But it wasn't me. Its face was pale and stretched, its eyes too wide and too dark. It smiled, a terrible, broken smile, and raised a hand. It beckoned me. Come back inside, it whispered in my voice. I shook my head, backing away. You're not real. It took a step forward. But you brought me here. Behind it, the house changed. The walls pulsed like they were alive. The windows bent inward, faces pushing against the glass. Jake, Mia, and others I didn't know. Their mouths opened in silent screams. I turned and ran, but the whispers followed me. And as I reached the street, my phone buzzed one last time. I didn't want to look, I really didn't, but my hands moved on their own. It was a live video feed of my room. The closet door was wide open, and inside, Something smiled. The feed cut out. And then a final message appeared. "We're already inside." I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stop. My legs ached, my lungs burned, but I kept going. The streetlights flickered above me, and every time the darkness swept over me, I swore I heard footsteps. Close, too close. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't help it. Another message. "You can't run. It's yours now." Tears blurred my vision. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't want to know. I just needed to get somewhere safe. Somewhere with people. I saw the gas station up ahead, its lights glowing against the night. I ran faster, burst through the doors, and collapsed against the counter, gasping for breath. The cashier, a tired-looking man in his 50s, stared at me. "Kid, you okay?" he asked. There's something." I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold my phone. "Hey, calm down," the man said, coming around the counter. "You need me to call someone? The cops?" The bell above the door jingled. We both turned. The door swung shut, but no one was there. The cold air swept in, carrying the scent of damp earth and something rotting. "Hello?" the cashier called. His voice wavered. He took a few steps toward the door, and then the lights went out. The entire store plunged into darkness. The only light came from my phone screen. And then the whispering started. Low and broken, coming from the aisles, from the ceiling, from the floor. "Why did you leave us? Come back. You're already home." The sound of footsteps echoed through the store, fast, skittering, like something crawling. The cashier backed toward me, his breathing ragged. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My phone buzzed. I looked down. Another message. "It's inside." The shelves started shaking. Items tumbled to the floor. Cans rolled toward us. Bottles shattered. And then the whispers grew louder, rising into a terrible, broken chorus. "Why did you leave? Why did you leave?" the cashier screamed. I spun toward him, and I saw it. A hand, pale and twisted, reaching up from the floor. It grabbed his ankle and yanked. He fell hard, his fingers scrabbling at the tiles. "Help me," he cried. But I couldn't move. I watched, frozen, as he was dragged backward, his nails leaving bloody streaks on the floor. And then the ground opened. The tiles cracked apart like a gaping mouth, and the cashier disappeared into the darkness. The store went silent. My phone buzzed one last time. "You shouldn't have run." The lights flickered back on. The store was empty. No sign of the cashier, no broken shelves, no blood. Just silence. But when I turned toward the glass doors, I saw them. Standing outside, watching me. Jake, Mia, and me. Their faces pressed against the glass, their black eyes wide and hungry. And then they started knocking. The knocking grew louder, harder, until it became a pounding. The glass rattled, but somehow it didn't break. Their faces stayed right there, pressed against the glass, those wide, empty eyes locked on me. And then they started smiling, not a human smile. Too wide, too stretched. Their lips peeled back like their skin didn't fit right. And then they started whispering. I couldn't hear it through the glass, but I could see their mouths moving, chanting, the same words over and over. "Let us in." I stumbled back, shaking my head. No, you're not real," I whispered, but my voice cracked. My phone buzzed. I looked down, afraid to see what was next. It was a live video feed again. My house, the front door, wide open. And the camera slowly turned toward the stairs, toward my room. And then I saw it, the closet. It was open, and something was crawling out, but this time it wasn't Jake, or Mia, or even me. It was all of them, twisted and broken versions of them. Their limbs bent the wrong way, their faces stretched and distorted. They spilled into my room, dragging themselves across the floor, reaching for the camera. For me. I dropped the phone. The pounding on the glass stopped. Silence fell. I looked up, and they were gone. Jake, Mia, the thing wearing my face, all gone. But the door was slowly opening. I backed away, my hands trembling, but there was nowhere left to go. The lights flickered again, and the store stretched. The aisles went on forever. The shelves bent and twisted like they were melting. And then the whispers came back. But this time, they weren't outside. They were right behind me. I spun around, and the mirror by the counter showed me everything. Them, standing inches behind me. Their faces pale and hollow, their eyes black, and their hands were reaching for me. But then I noticed something else. In the reflection, I wasn't me. I was smiling. A wide, stretched, broken smile. "No," I whispered. But my reflection didn't move. It kept smiling. And then it blinked. Not me. The reflection. The glass door burst open. Cold air rushed in. And the lights exploded. I ran. I didn't know where, there was no exit, no way out, but I ran. The aisles twisted, the shelves closed in, and the whispers rose to a scream. "You can't leave!" My feet hit something solid, and I fell. I hit the ground hard, my head spinning, and when I looked up, I was back at the tree. The school was gone. The gas station was gone. It was just me. And the tree. And the roots were moving. They slithered across the ground, wrapping around my wrists, my ankles. I struggled, screamed, but they pulled me closer, dragging me toward the open wound in the bark. Faces pushed against the wood. Mia, Jake, the cashier, their mouths moving silently. And from the darkness inside the tree, I heard my own voice. "Why did you leave us?" The roots tightened. The ground split open, and the last thing I saw was my reflection in the bark. It smiled, and then I was gone. The next day, the police found my phone outside the gas station. They never found me. But sometimes, people say they still see me. At the school, at the gas station, at my house, standing in the window, smiling.